All right, we're going to get the show on the road here this morning. Shelley, can you take board attendance?
Chair Josh McGee.
Here.
Ernest Richards.
Here.
Andrew Cable.
Here.
Keith Brainerd.
Here.
Stephanie Leiby.
Here.
Robert Massengale. Robert May.
Here.
All right, fantastic. So I don't know if everybody here knows this, but this is my first board meeting as chair. I'm very excited to be a part of this agency and serve its history. So I'd like to start out my chairmanship by thanking the firefighters, police officers, teachers, and other state and local public employees for their service to the state. The state could not function without your making the streets safe, coming to our aid when we need, and teaching the next generation of Texans. I have a deep and abiding respect for what you do. I'd like to thank the governor for the opportunity to serve the citizens of the state of Texas, and I will dedicate my time on this board to serving the mission of the agency and the governor well. So a little bit of history real quick, just to kind of run through it, just to show that I know some of the history here. Legislature created the State Pension Review Board back in 1979 to monitor Texas's public pension plans and to help bring to light any funding problems before they become too large. The agency has no authority to make plan changes, cannot force any action by Texas's state retirement systems. The primary purpose of the PRB is oversight, nothing more, to ensure that the plan sponsors in the state of Texas appropriately fund workers' benefit promises, and that those benefits are financially secure and can be paid when due, and so that the mismanagement of those systems doesn't threaten the fiscal solvency of our communities. It's a big task, and I think the board has done a fantastic job over the years, and that is a credit to those who have served on the board. A couple of those outgoing members we're going to recognize today. It is important to remember, though, when there are funding problems, it is not the public workers that cause them. They pay what is asked of them in every paycheck, and it is they who stand to lose the most if their retirement systems face fiscal challenges. And I think kind of that's the reason that we're all on this board and trying to ensure that funding practices meet the promises that are being made to our public workers. So a couple of things on priorities for me for the coming year, and hopefully the board will join me in this. I'm very excited to be a part of this board. I think it represents a real opportunity. I think that the PRB as an organization, as a reporting organization, has been a leader in the country. I think there are only a few organizations like this in states across the country. And I think it's a very important function, and I think that those states benefit greatly for having an organization, a reporting organization with oversight of the public retirement systems. So a couple of priorities for the coming year. One, we will review the guidelines for actuarial soundness that have been in place since 2011. I know this is of interest to many board members, and I am excited to take on that task. Two is something that has come up before. Right now we have kind of a 1-0 determination of actuarial soundness. I'd like to create a multi-tier rating system for fiscal health. Again, this is something that has been taken up by the board in the past, and I'd like to evaluate whether now is the right time to move on that action item. So those are my two priorities. As I said before, I will do my best to serve the mission of the PRB and look forward to collaborating with my colleagues on the board, the PRB staff, and public retirement systems across the state.
Could I make one comment here?
Of course.
One thing to keep in mind is that we, as Josh indicated, will be reviewing and becoming aware of what the board has done in the past with regard to the potential for a multi-measurement approach. All of you, we're a public agency. All our records are open. Anyone or all of you can call our staff and you can get us a copy of the same thing we have in terms of what our history has been. It's not a deep history, but there's information out there that I would encourage you to look at. And certainly, like anything else we do, it's open for comment now and in special meetings later.
Thank you, Mr. May. So now I'd like to introduce our new board members. So we've got two new board members in addition to myself, Ernest Richards and Stephanie Leiby. So Ernest comes to us from Irving, and Stephanie is here local in Austin. I'll give them a couple of minutes each here to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Leiby. I am a public finance attorney at Norton Rose Fulbright here in Austin. Prior to joining Norton Rose, I was with the Public Finance Division, Texas Attorney General's Office for 13 years. The last 5 years, I was chief of the Public Finance Division. And so I believe on this board as public finance or a municipal securities expert. And I am excited about this opportunity, looking forward to working with the board and working with you all as we develop either different guidelines or educational opportunities for the various retirement systems throughout the state. From a personal perspective, married, have a wonderful husband, 3 great kids, 3 boys, so I am a very busy lady.
My name is Ernest Richards. I, like Stephanie, am an attorney, a public finance attorney as well, with the law firm of Mayer Humboldt in Dallas, Texas. Prior to law school, I was an investment banker with Bank One in London, and my transactions were mostly private equity, pension fund, high net worth individuals. Since living in Texas for the past 20 years, I've come to respect and appreciate what's going on in Texas, and my appointment to this board is an opportunity for me to continue to serve. I currently serve as the secretary of the board at the City of Irving Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm also on the board of Grace Capital in Dallas, and I think my skill sets, I hope I'll be able to use it to continue to serve on this board. I appreciate that I'm here, and I look forward to being of service. I am married, I have 2 kids. My son is 10 years old, my daughter is 8. They like to think they're intelligent, but they're doing very well, and this is my first board meeting, so I'm going to do a lot of listening and looking at some of you and trying to figure out your expressions on your faces. Thank you very much.
Ms. Leiby, Mr. Richards, welcome to the board. And while we're giving family history, I should mention that my wife is a public school teacher here in Texas, teaches in Houston, and I have 1 daughter. Very excited to help serve the system that serves her. So now Anu has corrected that I need to acknowledge that a quorum of the board has been established. So having done that, we'll move on to recognize our outgoing members. So we've got 3 outgoing members. We've got former board chair Paul Braden, Wayne Roberts, and Leslie Greco-Poole. We're going to start with Paul Braden. I've got a resolution here that I'm going to read. Paul wasn't able to make it today, but we also have a plaque commemorating his board chairmanship. So I'm going to read the resolution here, and then we'll move on to the others. So whereas the Pension Review Board has been honored by the appointment of many distinguished citizens to serve terms among its membership, and whereas the Pension Review Board has been highly honored to have Mr. Paul Braden among its members since his initial appointment in 2004 until 2015, and whereas Mr. Braden has served with distinction in several roles since his initial appointment to the board's pension law position as both vice chair and chair of the board, and whereas Mr. Braden devoted more than a decade of service to the state of Texas, and whereas in his years of service he provided guidance and judgment to the board on countless occasions, and whereas the members of the board believe that Mr. Braden's loyalty and outstanding service to the board, the public employees, and the citizens of Texas deserve special recognition, now thereof be it resolved, the State Pension Review Board hereby commends and expresses gratitude and appreciation to Paul A. Braden for his devoted service and leadership. And we've got this nice plaque for Paul. We'll be sending that to him as well. Wayne Roberts. Wayne is here. He's sitting down at the end here. Whereas the Pension Review Board has been honored by the appointment of many distinguished citizens to serve terms among its membership, and whereas Wayne R. Roberts was appointed as a member of the Pension Review Board by Governor Rick Perry in April of 2009, and whereas Mr. Roberts has served with distinction as a member of the Pension Review Board in the government finance position, whereas Mr. Roberts has served as the Legislative Committee Chair and as a member of the Administrative Committee, and whereas Wayne R. Roberts in these multiple duties served with distinction towards ensuring that the mandated duties of the board be carried out in a highly efficient and equitable manner, and whereas in his years of service he provided guidance and judgment to the board on countless occasions, and whereas the members of the board believe that Mr. Roberts' loyalty and outstanding service to the board, the public employees, and citizens of Texas deserve special recognition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Pension Review Board hereby commends and expresses gratitude to Mr. Wayne R. Roberts for his devoted service and leadership. Mr. Roberts, I've got a plaque down here if you can make your way over here.
I've done this enough, I think I can probably do it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much for your
I really
service.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That is beautiful. Anu, thank you very much.
Leslie Greco-Poole. Whereas the Pension Review Board has been honored by the appointment of many distinguished citizens to serve terms among its membership, and whereas Leslie Greco-Poole, Texas, was appointed as a member of the Pension Review Board by Governor Rick Perry in April of 2011, and whereas Leslie Greco-Poole has served with distinction as a member of the Pension Review Board in the securities investment position, and whereas Ms. Greco-Poole has served as the Education and Research Committee Chair and as a member of the Research Committee, and whereas Ms. Greco-Poole in these multiple duties served with distinction towards ensuring the mandated duties of the board be carried out in a highly efficient and equitable manner, and whereas in her years of service she provided guidance and judgment to the board on countless occasions, and whereas the members of the board believe that Ms. Greco-Poole's loyalty and outstanding service to the board, the public employees, and citizens of Texas deserve special recognition, now therefore be it resolved that the State Pension Review Board hereby commends and expresses gratitude to Leslie Greco-Poole for her devoted service and leadership.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your
Great.
service.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
That's yours
Okay.
too. You gotta have
Thank
it
you,
back.
Anu. I'm gonna miss you guys. Thank you so much.
All right. We very much appreciate those who have served on the board in the past. They have really done a great job of upholding the mission of this agency, and we thank them very much. All right. Unless there are other comments, we're moving on to the meat of the agenda here.
Mr. Chairman, if I could go ahead and make a graceful exit. I just want to thank Governor Perry for the opportunity to serve. I want to thank the plans, I want to thank the staff, and the legislature. It's been a great 6 years, and I wish the very best of luck to all of y'all. Now I'm going to go back to my day job. I have that luxury now.
I just want to make a few comments. I usually listen a lot during these meetings, but I really wanted to recognize the staff here. I'm going to miss them quite a bit. They do a phenomenal job. You board members, as you know, the regular board members and the new board members, they do a great job, and they will guide you and help you quite a bit. You'll be quite impressed with them. So thank you. I'm going to miss everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to now discuss and consider board administrative matters, including the items listed here on the agenda. The first one up is the approval of the October 8th, 2015 board minutes. The chair entertains a motion to suspend the reading of those minutes and ask that a motion be moved to approve those minutes. I will note that the board chair will be abstaining from the vote on this since I was not here in October of 2015.
I'll move suspension of the minutes and approval of the provided minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. All right, moving on to agenda item number 5. The Education and Research Committee, we're going to discuss and consider the minimum educational training, the MET program for trustees and system administrators pursuant to section 802 or 801.211 of the State Government Code, including the items included on the agenda. First, we're going to receive a report on the development of the PRB online training from Michelle Cranes. Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because we have 3 new members on the board, I hope to spend just a few minutes giving a very brief background on the MET program, which was passed into law by the legislature in 2013. MET requirements for trustees and system administrators of public retirement systems consist of 7 hours of core pension-related training within their first year of service and 4 hours of continuing education every 2 years thereafter. For those who were already serving as of the program's start on January 1st of last year, they were given an additional year to complete the 7-hour core, which will come to its completion at the end of this year. If there are no questions, I'd move on to the update on development of PRB online training. While training is available from our 11 PRB accredited sponsors at this time, we are also developing free online training to help trustees complete the requirements, especially those that may not be able to travel to an in-person educational event. Behind tab 2A, you'll find a memo that we sent to the systems on January 7th announcing the release of our first online course, which counts for 45 minutes of MET credit in the core content area of benefits administration. We have already received positive feedback on that course, including one systems executive director who took the time to email us and let us know that he thought it was great and it would be very helpful to both his staff and board to be able to fulfill the training requirements. We will continue working on the remaining 6 core modules that we want to have up all in time for trustees to complete their education by the end of this year. And the next course that we plan to roll out is in risk management. We're hoping to do that in early March.
And just quickly, we would also like to thank our board member, Keith Brainerd, who provided feedback on the course, and some of our constituents who reviewed the course for us as well.
Judge Cable, who serves on our education committee, and others on the board, do we have any comments or questions for Michelle on this item?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to B here.
Okay, behind tab 2B, you'll see the memo that we sent to systems on January 20th, informing them of upcoming MET reporting dates, which include the March 1st deadline to report their trustee and administrator information to us, as well as the training they've completed towards the requirements thus far. We've already started receiving a lot of forms and are logging those into our database and beginning to evaluate them. The next training report will be due on October 1st, and that report will feed into our November 2016 compliance report to the legislature, which we're required to do by law.
Board have any questions or comments on this item?
Good.
Seeing none, let's move on.
Okay. Next, we move to the Education and Research Committee meeting, which was held on November 12th of last year. That was its first meeting, and we've included the minutes behind tab 2C. Staff has incorporated the committee's recommendations from that meeting into proposed rule amendments under the next agenda item, so if it's okay, I plan to walk through those.
That is fine.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to 5D. The committee proposals First one relates to training completed before a trustee or administrator's service begins. This committee recommendation would amend section 607.110 to allow training taken up to 6 months prior to beginning service to count towards the MET requirements. This change comes from multiple inquiries we received from systems who had new trustees who wanted to get their training out of the way or completed between being appointed and being sworn in. And our rules previously or currently don't allow for that to happen. So the committee's recommendation, again, would allow training going back 6 months prior to service to count. If there are no questions? Okay, I'd like to take the next two proposed rule amendments out of order so that we can cover all the rule changes together, if that's okay. So next, I'd like to hit online training standards. We had received questions from educational sponsors who weren't sure how to track attendance in an online course environment. And the rules, of course, require sponsors to track attendance. So the committee looked at this, and their recommendation would amend section 607.120 and would require MET sponsors providing online or other electronic courses to, at a minimum, provide a course completion code to track attendance and completion. And that was modeled after the Attorney General's office, their Open Meetings and Public Information Act trainings. When you reach the end, there's a code that you can then plug in to have your certificate printed. And please note that this rule would set a minimum standard, but systems sponsors offering training could, of course, go beyond that and use more sophisticated means like a learning management system, which is what we're using for our own online courses. Next, I'd like to cover a small rule cleanup to the reporting requirements in section 607.140, which would remove outdated language and change the reporting deadlines to allow systems an additional month to report their training after the close of each reporting period. And that would conclude all of the rule amendment proposals. The following two committee recommendations would not require rule change. The first of those is regarding our curriculum guide. The staff had asked the committee how much of the content in each of the 7 core content areas of the curriculum guide sponsors should have to cover. And the committee recommended requiring a course to cover 100% of the subtopics and learning objectives in the curriculum guide for each of those 7 core areas. It should be noted that this change would apply to sponsors accredited from this point on, and then existing sponsors only once their accreditation were renewed in the future. That change would not require rule change and would be made to the curriculum guide itself. Finally, with respect to compliance reporting of MET to the legislature, we had received questions about how we would report that information in our first report in November of 2016. And the committee's recommendation is to include both trustee names and their positions, in addition to the system's compliance as an aggregate percentage. And on this one, staff is asking board to approve this recommendation, but it also would not require rule change. That's all I have. Happy to answer questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, there was healthy discussion in this committee, and we were fortunate enough to have public participation as well. And I feel real confident with the recommendations that were made. It was great.
Fantastic. Thank you, Judge Cable.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, please. Regarding the code, can you describe what the code looks like?
Sure. It's been a while since I've taken the Attorney General's courses. I think it's a set of maybe 4 or 5 numeric digits. Could be letters. Our rule doesn't prescribe to that level of detail.
Has the AG's office provided us assurance that it works?
Mr. Brainard, define works.
Well, you want to know that people who are taking these courses are actually taking them. I've heard that defensive driving courses can provide a little bit more assurance than a code. I'm just curious how does it work? Do you have to sit there and push buttons in order to get the code, or does it just show up at the end?
Sure. So it could work a variety of ways, and that would be left to the sponsor. But for the Attorney General's course, I can tell you, you watch a video, and then at the end, a code appears that you type into their website, and it allows you to print a certificate.
And just to add, this is, of course, is somewhat of an honor system. So we trust our constituents to watch the full video or complete the course before accessing the completion code. So that's the idea behind proposing that.
Well, I'll go for approval today, and I'd like to suggest that we continue to look at opportunities to make sure that people are actually getting the education.
What would those opportunities look like?
Well, like I said, I've heard that defensive driving courses provide a little bit more robust assurance that the person is actually sitting there and participating in the instruction.
So some sort of quiz or interactive element?
Correct.
All right.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. With regards to the examination, is it transferable? I guess my question is, so you're an employee of Plan A, and you've taken the test or the exam or the class, and then you now work for Plan B, totally different company. You have to take it again, or is it transferable? Is it on individual, or is it on the plan?
It is transferable and will follow the individual should they change public retirement systems.
So once you have met the education requirement, you have met the education requirement and are current, no matter which plan you are participating in.
That's right. I would add that the rules do specify that if you have a break of service for 2 years or longer, then you would have to repeat the core, but assuming that you didn't break service for that long, you would not.
Thank you.
Other questions, discussion on this item? Seeing none, the chair entertains a motion to adopt the Education and Research Committee's proposal after incorporating comments from the board. I don't believe we had any substantive comments, and authorizes staff to publish in the Texas Register the proposed rule amendment to Texas Administrative Code, Title 40, Part 17, Chapter 607, relating to Public Retirement System's Minimum Education Training Program for public comment pending final approval by the Assistant Attorney General, Counsel, and the Board Chair.
So moved.
Second?
Is there any additional discussion of these items?
Well, I would only request that, we don't need to revise the motion, but I'd only request that we get assurance from staff that we'll look at other opportunities going forward to assure that people are actually getting the instruction.
We
Staff, it
will.
would be great if you could consider adding interactive elements to this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to quickly add, our online course would include questions, and that's something that our constituents or sponsors can use as a model going forward in addition to providing a code.
Thank you.
All right, the motion to adopt Education and Research Committee's proposals and authorize staff to publish in the Texas Register the proposed rule amendments to Texas Administrative Code, Title 40, Part 17, Chapter 607, relating to Public Retirement System's Minimum Education Training Program for public comment pending final approval by the Assistant Attorney General and Board Chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right. Moving on to item number 6, the Actuarial Committee. Mr. May.
I'm going to pass this on to our assistant, Anu, and I may have a comment or two as we move along.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, members. Behind tab 3A of your meeting packet, we have included a summary of the compliance and reporting information for our 93 defined benefit retirement systems. And just to quickly refresh members, the systems are required to submit annual reports, which include financial, membership, as well as investment returns and assumptions report, and they're required to submit those under Chapter 802 of the Texas Government Code, and there is a deadline provided by the statute, and if we don't receive those reports in time, that's when we report those systems to be non-compliant. Looking at the first table, a majority of our systems are currently compliant. And moving on to the next table, we have provided information on the non-compliant systems over 60 days. The statute additionally states that if the plans do not submit their annual reports by the 60th day after the reports are due, the agency is required to post the names of those systems on our website, as well as provide a letter to the sponsoring entities of those systems, making them aware of the non-compliant status of their plans. So currently what we have before you is the number of systems that are non-compliant and are on the 60-day list. And as you can see, at the October board meeting, we had 16 systems which were non-compliant, and what we had heard from our plans was that the reason for their non-compliance was essentially the new GASB disclosure requirements, and that they were working towards getting their reports done on time. And I'm happy to report that the number has gone down significantly. However, a majority of those systems have informed us that we should receive their reports any day now. And we have a list of those systems included in your packet. And at this time, we are requesting the board to make a determination for 2 systems that we have tried to actively reach out to and have not been able to establish any contact. And what we would like to request the board is to make a determination if the staff can inform those systems using the Pension Review Board's non-compliance policy, that at the next board meeting their names would be placed on the agenda and they would be requested to come to the meeting to provide an explanation for their non-compliant status. And the 2 systems are the Northeast Medical Center Hospital Retirement Plan, as well as Corpus Christi Regional Transportation Authority. And our hope is once we relay this information to those 2 plans, they'd probably expedite in getting their reports done, especially with Northeast Medical. These plans currently are non-compliant for their 2014 reports. And with Northeast Medical, in the next month or so, they will be non-compliant, over 60-day non-compliant for their 2015 report as well. So we do have a motion for this agenda item, members.
Questions on the list here before we get to that. So we've got 8 systems on this list. Is this list posted somewhere, and why only 2 of the systems?
Yes, thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. The list is posted on our website, and we did receive the audit report from Paris Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund yesterday, so they will be coming off the list soon. And the reason why we are recommending 2 of the 7 systems is we have been able to establish contact with the other plans, and they have informed us, again, because of the GASB requirements, they are working hard on getting the reports to us. And also, the 83rd legislature clarified the audit requirement for these systems. Some of these plans used to piggyback on their sponsor audits in the past, and we have made them aware of the change made by the legislature where they are not now required to do a standalone plan audit. So part of the reason why, in addition to GASB, these systems are struggling with their annual financial reports specifically is because some of them would probably be doing a independent plan audit for the first time. However, we have heard from most of these, especially firefighter plans, that we should see their audit any day now, except for Northeast Medical and Corpus Christi. Traditionally, it's been hard for us to, talk to somebody over there and be able to relay their non-compliant status.
Thank you. And at what point, if we do not receive reports from the other other plans here that we are not that we don't have any action on the agenda for today, at what point will we add them to future board agendas?
At the next meeting, we will come back with an updated list and information on the other systems on the list right now and inform the board where they stand and talk about next step on them.
Other board discussion of the list?
Mr. Chairman, you're referring only, Anu, in that response to the systems that are on this list we'll hear from.
That's correct.
When will we hear about other systems that are not on this list that may end up on this list?
So we have a notification process. We send out 15-day and 45-day both reminder and enforcement notices to those systems. So we will be in communication and in touch with them, making them aware of their current non-compliance status. Now the over 60 days list is for the systems that have been non-compliant 60 days past their due date. So for the year 2015, once those non-compliant systems, if they become subject to the 60-day list, we'll work with them and of course come back at the next board meeting and update the board on those as well.
So some new ones may appear at the next board meeting.
That's possible.
Thank you.
For the fiscal year 2015.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Did I hear you, I know, saying that Corpus Christi and Northeast are the two plans you've had difficulties getting in touch with?
That's correct.
And so what did you want to do? Were you going to, if they are non-compliant, were we going to post it on your website?
Once, if the board makes a determination and authorizes staff to make these two systems aware, we will send out formal notices to them, letting them know that at the next board meeting they will be on the agenda and would probably be asked to appear before the board and provide an explanation. So we will again, and again, the hope here is to help those systems become compliant before the next meeting.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, the chair entertains a motion to adopt to place the staff recommended non-compliant system under section 801.209 of the Texas Government Code on the agenda and to ask them to appear before the board at the next board meeting unless the required reports are provided prior to the board meeting. Is there any board discussion or comments on that resolution? All right, reading it again, the chair entertains a motion to place the staff recommended non-compliant systems under section 801.209 of the Texas Government Code on the agenda and ask them to appear before the board at the next board meeting unless the required reports are provided prior to the board meeting. Can somebody move?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, Mr. May, moving on to B.
And once again, I'll pass it on to Anu.
Thank you, members. Members, behind tab 3B, we have included the current actuarial valuation report for the members. And again, to refresh the members, this report is a compilation of pension data as reported by our systems, and they are sorted by amortization period. There are some systems that the Pension Review Board calculates the amortization period for, but for the most part, the information contained in this report comes from the actuarial valuation study of those systems. And just a couple of things to note here, members. The over 40-day amortization period number has gone down from the last board meeting. So at the October board meeting, we had 24 systems which had amortization period over 40 years. As you can see, this report now shows that that number has gone down to 21. And we have made some minor updates to this report as well that I would quickly like to point out. We have included the color coding that we use for the amortization period ranges for the prior actuarial valuation periods as well, so it's easier for folks to see or identify the changes that have happened from prior to current actuarial valuation for a retirement system. And in the supplemental report, we have also included the market value of asset information for our 93 defined benefit plans. Do you have any questions, members?
Mr. Chairman, on new item, footnote number 2 pertaining to the Cy-Fair ISD pension plan, says that the plan was terminated effective last year, and the PRB is working with the plan in order to make them defunct in our system. Can you clarify that, please?
Sure, thank you for that question. Cy-Fair ISD is relatively a small plan that used to provide pension benefits for non-TRS members. In 2014, they froze their plan, and they have just informed us that they have now terminated the plan as of December 31st, 2015. And so we have a process in place where we ask for proper documentation. They have informed us that they're working on making all the distributions from the system, and once that is completed, we will go ahead and make the plan defunct, and they will come off our actuarial valuation report.
Well, they have unfunded liabilities of $8 million. What happens to those?
I believe, and it's my understanding at this point, and they are an 810 plan, a plan created or authorized to provide pension benefit under Chapter 810 of the Government Code. So it's our understanding that the asset in the fund is being distributed to the systems and
To members, correct?
to the members, excuse me.
Right.
Yes.
So the plan was frozen before, meaning that no new members come in and nobody accrues any new benefits.
And their benefits was frozen
And
as
that
well.
the assets of the plan are distributed. I think Keith's question, Mr. Bernard's question is, okay, if they're short, how did they work out the distribution of those assets given the shortfall?
And I believe again, I'll go back and make sure that we receive proper documentation. We haven't seen what they are going to do with the unfunded liability, but what my understanding is that they will make a determination of the vested accrued benefit for each member, and whenever the plan was frozen back in 2014, and accordingly make the distribution.
So the member is going to be provided with a portion of the benefit that they have been promised?
That's correct. They are allowing members to roll over their benefit into an IRA or another qualified plan, be it a 401k or an IRA.
That's interesting. And can you clarify, do you know which employees of that school district would not participate in the TRS?
I believe they are part-time or seasonal workers, but I can go back and make sure that's the
Who
case.
just normally would not qualify for
Qualified to be a TRS member, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I would be interested in how they're going to resolve the shortfall.
Unfunded.
Whether employees are going to be shorted, or whether they're going to make it up over time, or what.
I agree with Mr. Brainard. It would be very nice to know kind of exactly what the terms of the termination are and what that means for members.
Definitely. We will make sure we get that information from the system.
Quick question.
Yes.
What is the total number of plans? Is it 93 or 94?
93.
93.
We do have a new firefighter plan that was recently created, but they do not have any trust fund to report as of today. So currently we have 93 systems on this report.
So the plan that was recently terminated, is it included in this 93?
That's correct.
Okay.
I would note in the counting process where we say that we have 93 plans, that we have two large multi-employer plans, one for county and district and one for cities. And if we counted, and from an actuarial point of view, we have each plan in the TMRS and in TCDRS stands on its own footing. Employer pays what the actuarially determined rate is. All of the plans are properly funded, and if we counted those, from the actuarial perspective, instead of having 93, we have 91 plus approximately 800 plans, cities around the state are in this plan, and approximately 650 counties and districts are individually, they're on their own within it, and so, but because there's a large number and they're all done in a similar way, instead of having a much larger number, we call them one each here. And certainly the assets are commingled, and from an investment point of view, counting them as one each is right, is appropriate. But I want us to keep in mind that there really are 800 plans, and they're every one are working well. Same for the 650 county and districts. They're working so well from an actuarial point of view that we don't talk about them very much. And we'd like to have more like that.
So I'd like to understand one item from this report. Annie, you highlighted the improvement in the number of plans that have gotten below the 40-year amortization period cutoff. That's a very positive development. I look at the bottom numbers, though, and I see there's been little change in funded ratio and an increase in the unfunded liability. So is what's driving the reduction in those amortization periods, is that change in funding policy by plan sponsors? What's driving the improvement in amortization without the improvement in unfunded liability?
Thank you. For some systems, for example, Tezra's or some of the El Paso plans, we do know that because they experienced strong or positive investment returns in 2013, that their one of the reasons why their AMP period changed from infinite to under 30 is because of positive investment return. And for some other systems, they experienced increase in contribution, which helped them improve their AMP periods as well. So there are different factors that were at play here, but those were the two main ones that we noticed.
Indeed, the statewide plan for state employees in Texas is an example where, while for many years the state did not fund an actuarial rate, they did this last year, and so they moved from having an infinite amortization period to having a 33-year amortization period. So I'd like to see it lower. I'd like to see it under 30, but it was a major change.
So there is some positive asset experience here, but it seems that there's just been a greater commitment on the funding side for future contributions into these plans that's moved the amortization periods. Is that?
I would say
Yeah.
I think that is the stronger. I've counted, but I think that you're right.
That I agree with Mr. May that would be a fair assessment.
Fantastic. And on funding policy generally, so Mr. May, you said that the state committed to funding the actuarial contribution. Do we have an idea of how many of these plans are fixed rate versus actual actuarial contributions?
That was actually, the state employees plan is a fixed rate plan, and so it's not an actuarially determined rate. Well, it is an actuarially determined rate this year, but in the future, the state has an understanding that they want to pay that same percent of pay every year in the future, so it becomes a plan that the amortization period will move up and down depending on experience of the plan.
And
Similar procedure is followed with the teacher retirement system.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And to add to that, majority of our plans are, to Bob's point, fixed rate plans, where the amortization period fluctuates, but the contribution has already been committed to.
Right.
Take a firefighter plan, there are about 40 of them. Most of the time, the boards believe and the city believes that they want to set a budget amount as a percent of pay and then pay that amount every year in the future until they make a change. They don't feel as comfortable bouncing the rate up and down, the employer rate. every year, even though that's a preferred that keeps you on track all the time. And indeed TMR and TCD do adjust the rate up and down every year. But most of our other plans fix a rate at a new level, and that would include my estimate of what the state employees plan will be, a fixed rate with 33 years, but if we have adverse investment experience, then the amortization period will go up. It's not going to go to infinity. It may go up several years,
Right.
though, or vice versa. If investment return is better than expected, then that amortization period would go down under 30. Although in their case, when it drops under 30, they look hard at whether they can give retirees a cost of living adjustment, which they haven't done for about 12 or 15 years.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. May. I share your assessment. I think that actuarial funding would be preferred. And I would say that fixed rate requires more vigilance to make sure that the plan sponsor is making contributions appropriate to the cost of the plan. And so it might be useful on these reports or somewhere for us to have an indicator for fixed rate versus actuarial contributions. And we should also it would be interesting to convey somewhere as well whether the plan sponsor made an amount that was equivalent to the actuarial required contribution or not. I think those two things would help us have a little more vigilance and kind of understand how funding policy fits into this equation. I think that's kind of our primary mandate.
I agree with that. I think those are additional items. We can work on that, and when there's the next actuarial meeting, we can look at it at that level first before it comes up. But that's a good point.
Thank you. I have one question about a specific plan, and we don't have to necessarily get too much detail here, but I noticed that Dallas Police and Fire has jumped to the top of the list here, going from a 26-year amortization period to an infinite amortization period. Is there a story behind that? Is there something that we should monitor, or would you like to highlight something?
Definitely. Based on their most current actuarial valuation, Dallas Police and Fire has one of the reasons why they jumped from a 26-year amortization period to infinite is because they lowered their investment return assumption significantly from 8.5 to 7.25. And we were also informed through their actuarial valuation study that they have experienced some actuarial losses related to their investments, and that was the other big driver in that jump.
Thank you, Anu. So I would like to point out that the reduction in the rate used to discount liabilities is a positive development against the funding policy. This is probably something the board should monitor going forward, but that is a positive development.
Mr. Chairman, Anu, do we have a line of communication with that plan?
We do, and we have been providing a lot of technical assistance to the system with information requests that they have made.
And when is their next actuarial evaluation due? Do you know?
I don't remember.
So the last
Whether
one,
they're doing annuals.
they are doing annual valuation, so we should see a new one sometime next year.
In the next few months?
And that's one that we have under review right now. I mean, we don't have we try to hit sort of at a point in time and show out an updated status of all the plans, but we have ongoing on our list of things we need to look at. I will be looking more at the Dallas plan, for instance.
Now, did I understand that from Anu that a big part of this was the drop in the discount rate, but on the other side was asset write-downs?
That's correct.
That's right.
Do we know much about those asset side write-downs?
Based on my understanding, they are working on making sure that their books and their valuations are reporting the information correctly, and they have also created a committee of their board to look into the challenges that they are currently facing, and they are actively working towards getting the plan on the right path. But if members want, we can definitely reach out to them and ask for any specific additional information that they're interested in.
I don't need more. I just want a assurance that this has their attention and that you're able to communicate with them. That's
We
the key.
do. And it's an ongoing issue in Dallas. It's, as it should be.
Yeah, I would request that we make sure that we monitor this and kind of return to this this item in the next board meeting.
And just to add here real quick, Mr. Chairman, to your point about including some information on the actually required contribution rate, the legislature last session, in preparation for the GASB ARC going away, did make an amendment to our governing statute, Chapter 802, where moving forward, systems would be required to include a 30-year recommended contribution rate in their actuarial valuations in Texas.
Yeah, I was involved in that, and I feel like it's can be helpful to a board to know what an actuarially determined contribution rate would be, what amount of contribution is that, and it could be picked at 30, 25, 20, chose 30, and so they have that issue that they have that additional information so that if they do want to go to an annually determined actuarial contribution, they know what it is. They know how much that is.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on this agenda item on the actuarial report? All right, seeing none.
Thank you, members. Moving on, behind tab 4A, members, in your packet, we have included a copy of two memorandums that we had provided to our systems, making them aware of the reporting requirement changes that the 84th legislature made last year. And we already briefly touched on the 30-year recommended rate to be included in the actuarial valuations moving forward, as well as there were some changes regarding actuarial experience studies. Certain systems at a certain asset threshold would be required to conduct an actuarial experience study every 5 years, as well as House Bill 3310 included a new requirement for certain systems to formulate a funding soundness restoration plan in conjunction with their sponsoring entities, and this we also, the second memo that we provided, we outlined the implementation deadline for this requirement, which for certain systems is November 1st of this year, and it basically impacts the systems that have had, as of their most recent valuation, had three consecutive valuations or 2 consecutive valuations if the systems conduct one every 2 years, with amortization periods over 40 years. And the requirement is for those systems to work with their sponsoring entities and formulate a plan to address the contribution shortfall moving forward. And what we have also included in your board packet, members, behind the green divider is a list of the systems which are immediately subject to the new FSRP formulation requirement. And currently we have 13 systems on the list. We have reached out to those systems, made them aware of the requirement, and have been told that they have already started working with their sponsors, have started talking to their sponsors about adopting a plan. And we also have included a list of systems that could become subject to in the future. And currently we have 5 of those systems here for you. And again, we have reached out to those plans as well.
So you reached out to both of these plans through formal communication twice, I see here. Is that correct?
Yes, through the memorandums, yes,
Got you.
twice.
And there are 13 plans that are immediately subject to the FSRP,
That's correct.
and 5 that will be in the future. What do you mean by the future?
We, depending upon if they do annual or biennial actuarial valuations, their current, most recent AV shows that they are over the 40-year amortization period threshold. So we will be watching to see if their future valuations show that they remain at that AM period, or if they if the AM period is lower, then of course they'll fall off the list. But if their future valuations show that they are over the 40-year threshold, we will continue to monitor, and depending upon how, what's the frequency of their valuation, they will be subject to the requirement.
So these 5 have had at least one AV with
That's-
amortization period that's
that's
over the
correct.
threshold.
That's
Okay. Are there systems in this 5 that have had 2, and so their next AV will put them on the list if they are above that threshold?
I believe this is based on their most recent. So
Okay.
this is their first AV that puts them over the threshold.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, discussion on?
Well, the first plan on this list is shown as having had an amortization period of 26 years in the last time, so the infinite one is the first time we're seeing it. Under the state law, we wouldn't be seeing that requirement kick in for another 2 years. Is that correct?
You're referring to Dallas Police and Fire on the top of the list of 5?
Yes, sir. So we could go 2 years before they have to submit a
That's
restoration plan.
That you're exactly right. However, with Dallas Police and Fire, we do know they're already working towards, given their other challenges, working towards getting their financial situation addressed.
This process happened in a House committee, as well as input from the PRB. I was a part of that, and I think there would be a recognition on everybody's part that worked with that's an area that is that needs to be reviewed further and can be changed further. There's no right answer here, but I think there was a definite move to try to strengthen funding. But it was not an aggressive move. It was a slow process move. And is flow too slow? Perhaps. I mean, these are issues that were sort of an intertwining between what the legislators through a committee were talking about and what input we gave to them.
So just so I'm clear, the FSRP kicks in after 3 AVs that are above the threshold, and these actuarial evaluations are generally produced on some rolling schedule that has a number of years in between. So to get 3 AVs over, it can be anywhere from 3 years to almost a decade before they actually are subject to FSRP. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
Okay. And so the 2 variables that determine how quickly these plans are subject to FSRP are going to be how often they produce an AV and how many AVs they have to have that are above the threshold before they are subject to that FSRP.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Do we know of the plans here, what the average or median number of years between AVs is, what the kind of standard operating procedure is for plans?
Yes, we can definitely provide that information. For example, for our bigger municipal plans, they generally do AVs every year. But for our smaller TELFRA, firefighter plans organized under TELFRA conduct those every other year.
Great.
But if you're interested, we can definitely provide that.
Yeah, I would be definitely interested in kind of understanding how long in between AVs for the average plan, the median plan, just understanding kind of the distribution around that. I share Mr. Bernard's, what I think is Mr. Bernard's concern that we have the FSRP, which is a good thing, which pushes plan sponsors to develop an adequate funding plan for their benefit promises, but that is stretched out over such a period that the problem can become quite large in the interim. If we're talking about multiple years, every other year, every 3 years doing an AV, we're talking about a decade between when problems start and when an FSRP is developed, and then another length of time before any plan can be implemented. And so those problems, those funding problems, can get out of hand and affect workers in a real way before any thing can be done about it.
Thank you. And I would like to quickly add here, for some of our TELFRA plans, we have seen in their valuations, if the AM period is at infinite or they have a long amortization period, they do, the actuary includes a recommended remediation plan for the system to provide to their sponsoring entity. So that's something that we have seen with TELFRA systems, so to speak, and the FSRP requirement would definitely, and that's what we have heard from some of our TELFRA plans, that they consider this to be a good opportunity to open lines of communications with their sponsors.
Great. And I think
TELFRA means Texas Local Firefighters Retirement Act. That's how they originally were set up. They're now that's just a name that tags those 41 as being their firefighter plans. There may be one or two exceptions to that, but they all firefighter plans? All. So that's who they are, and they're typically on the medium to large medium city size, where the firefighters are not covered by PMRS. So we use that term a lot, but that's what it means.
Yeah. There are probably 1 or 2 emergency service district plans in that makeup as well.
Yeah, I would recommend that the board kind of monitor how long it takes for the FSRP to be implemented and kind of stay abreast of how well implementation is working. I think that's an important issue. All right. Any other comments, discussion on the FSRP list we have here? All right, seeing none.
Thank you, members. Moving on, members, behind tab 4B, we have included 3 documents for you. The first is the board's current policy for determination of system actuarial review. Just to refresh the members, the board adopted this policy back in 2011, and it's tied to the PRB guidelines, where there is a process outlined within the policy directing the staff actuary to review the actuarial valuation studies that we receive from our systems and keep the board actuary apprised of the system's amortization period. And the next document that we have behind the green divider is the proposed update to this policy, keeping in mind the changes made by House Bill 3310, where the legislature adopted or codified the Pension Review Board's guideline standard, one of the standards contained in the PRB guidelines with regards to the 40-year amortization period into state law. Our hope here with proposing the changes is to tie the PRB policy to the state law now, and what we are requesting from the board is to authorize staff to request public comment from our constituents with regards to the proposed changes, and come back at the next meeting with those public comments as well as the proposed language for board's consideration. And of course, if members could also provide input on our proposed changes, that always helps staff.
So the staff is asking us to approve a request for public comment on this policy. Is there discussion of the proposed changes that we see in front of us here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of suggested changes. Item 2 suggests, well, I'll just read it quickly, it's short. If the proposed language would read, if the staff determines a system is not meeting the statutory 40-year amortization period requirement, staff will notify the executive director and board actuary. I'd like to strike actuary from the end of that and just say the executive director and the board, so the full board would be made aware of systems that are not meeting the requirement. Similarly, on item 4, the final line states the executive director and staff actuary will report preliminary findings to the board actuary. I'd like to suggest 2 changes there. One, I'd like to remove staff actuary from that. We have an executive director and she's responsible for doing that. And also I'd like to expand board actuary to be just the full board. So if you need an amendment, I would consider that a motion.
Let's talk about process a bit. We have typically gone through an actuarial committee of the board and then moved on to the board. And I think that's a better interim step, is to go through the actuarial committee first on the way to the board.
Mr. Mayor, you proposing in the 2 places that Mr. Bernard struck actuary from board actuary to instead strike board actuary and insert actuarial committee?
Yep. Anu, do you see any weakness in that? I mean, it's a more informal process. There are 3 of us on that. Anybody else, any of the other board members can attend any actuarial committee meeting, but 3 of us will be on that committee.
Definitely.
And I think that's worked better than to talk about it at that level.
What is the process, Anu, for informing the board actuary now of a system that is falling short of the requirement?
So the current process is up until last August, when we had a staff actuary. The staff actuary used to review every single valuation that we received from the systems, and we of course always make sure that we are reviewing the assumptions used in the valuation, reviewing the information reported in the valuation, and if the staff actuary had any concerns, initially it was an informal process where we used to reach out to the board actuary to make sure we have another set of eyes, another set of actuary looking at the staff actuary's work, and if the board actuary agreed with staff actuary's determination, our process was to make the system aware of the determination made by the board and staff actuary, and the staff would then go on to conduct a review of the system and provide that information to the actuarial committee. And the thought process behind using the actuarial committee at that point was the board does have that the actuarial committee is a standing committee of the board, and it's there to assist the board in reviewing the information presented, and it streamlines the process, so to speak, to a certain degree, and that's why we had that process, or have that process in the current policy.
So what would it take to inform the whole board as opposed to just the committee?
We will place the information on the agenda and inform the full board, as opposed to doing it through an actuarial committee, where in my mind really it's more going through the actuarial committee. You streamline the process where you talk to the system directly, have the system appear before the actuarial committee, have the discussion before going to the full board with any recommendation or additional information. But it can go either way.
Yeah, you can do it. We could do it either way.
Right, the full board
the
can
thought
direct
was,
the committee.
When we put this approach in, that that to the extent we can subdivide all of the different tasks into committees and then bring committee recommendations to the whole board, that that it was smoother for the whole, it was much less involvement of the whole board, which in the past, I think the whole board probably preferred not having long board meetings, because there's often a fair amount of input from the audience at the actuarial committee meeting. There's even though we could have long discussions from the audience here, that's the last thing on our agenda. It streamlined the process, it seemed to me.
Okay, I'm not trying to add bureaucracy here. I just want to know. I'm a member of the Pension Review Board, and when there's a system that's not meeting the requirement, I'd like to know.
So
And
let's
Well, you're also on the actuarial committee, so you would know at that level too.
But
Okay.
that's certainly an option for the staff to inform the full board, and then the board can charge the actuarial committee to conduct
Let's
further
talk
deliberations.
specifically about the two spots, Mr. Bernard, that you wanted to edit. One is notification of the systems that they are subject to the requirement that they're out of line with the 40 years. Is that correct?
Well,
So that's notifying somebody on the board, either the full board or the actuarial committee, that we are going to contact as a board those, as the PRB, those systems that are out of compliance.
so it's a notification from staff to the full board that there is one or more systems that are not meeting the requirements. I'm just saying that I think the full board should know rather than a single individual.
How long usually is between the notification, how much time would pass between the notification of the actuarial committee under number 2, and then if we go down to number 6, the list of those subject to FSRP and possibly moving into FSRP to the whole board? Because that step 6, if I'm correct in this assessment, step 6 is when the entire board is notified under the currently proposed process.
That's correct. And if you will, members, step 6 could in fact fill that gap where at every board meeting we can let the board know as to which systems fall within the FSRP list, or make the board aware of any system that we want to have further discussions on. So step 6 could in fact fill that gap.
Mr. Bernard, are you concerned that between board meetings that you would like to receive notification, be made aware of plans that kind of fit this bill?
Yes.
Well, and now that would happen through the actuarial committee process for the board members who are on the actuarial committee, and if we approve the new slate as to who's on the actuarial committee, you've been on it, you would be again. I worry that, let's see, if we have 3 board meetings a year, and the any kind of final action on the notification of people that they're out of line has to wait for the whole board, it's going to slow the process down. It would worry me, and I don't think that would be our intent.
Sorry, just to be clear, the notification of the Pension Review Board actuary or actuarial committee, my understanding from the way it's written here, it would not hold up notification of the systems. And so notification of the systems could occur regardless of notification of the board, and I think that's true up here with the preliminary findings item in number 4 as well. I don't have super strong feelings about this. I think I would be fine with having the actuarial committee be here and make sure that we make 6 strong, but I would welcome further discussion about full board notification of plans that are not meeting the statutory requirement, and potentially adding full board report on the preliminary findings of any actuarial review.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I'm not articulating very well here. All I want is an email or a phone call. There's a system that's not meeting the standard. I don't understand why that has to go through a committee or an individual.
I agree with that.
If one member of the board isn't being notified, as members of the Pension Review Board, I would think we'd all want to know.
I would agree with that. So that pertains to number 2. Let's kind of cordon that one off here real quick. Any other comments on number 2?
Well, just comment on number 2. I mean, to the extent that we're going to get these notifications, I think the notification should come either at 3 or later, because it seems to me like 3 is verifying the findings made in 2 so that there's consent or agreement by the actuary that there really is a deficiency. And I think after that point, you could send an email to the board.
And thank you for that. I would recommend that as well, that initially we work with the board actuary as well as the system to make sure the determination is accurate and appropriate, and then come back to the full board or send that email at number 3 informing the full board. However, at the next meeting, the staff can come back with different options with regards to sending a notification to the full board, or keeping the board apprised that we are working with the system. This is something that has been preliminary determined, is also an option.
So I agree with Mr. Bernard that it would be useful to notify the whole board when it is determined that a system is not meeting the statutory requirement.
And so if the staff and the 2 actuaries, the board actuary and staff actuary, are of the view, then under what we're discussing, then we would tell the whole board by email
I think
Of the preliminary determination.
I think the
instead of
question-
waiting till the next board meeting, which might be 6 months.
I agree with that. So I think the determination right now is whether that occurs prior to or after number 3. So
That's fine with me. I would point out that number 3 does not indicate any requirement that the system acknowledge the problem. All we're doing is a one-way notification there.
I assume that it was concurrent with number 2 whenever I read this. I think that is what you're getting at, that those 2 things are concurrent.
Well, no, number 3 is not indicating that the system makes any acknowledgement.
Right.
And we can definitely include some administrative procedure in there to
I don't think that's what Mr. Bernard is necessarily saying. I think he's saying that switching those 2 is probably unnecessary because it's a one-way notification, and you can send those notifications. Both are just one-way notifications, one going to the board, one going to the system. And both of those things can be sent. There's no time that has to pass or process that has to be done in either of them other than the notification itself.
And we're saying we would move on ahead to notify the board of a plan that is not meeting our guidelines, and that'd be by letter or email, but we wouldn't be with, I'm going to say, with or without. We want to hear from the system, but there are times we don't hear from the systems, and I think we still need to tell the board what we think the issues are, even if the system hasn't responded to. I mean, we sure would try. We know it's not a matter of not trying, but it is a matter of, at times, the system, for whatever reason, may not.
I think the current formulation is actually what Mr. Bernard initially suggested, which is simply leaving 2 and 3 in the order that they are and striking the word actuary from the very end of number 2.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, so the next item, which we kind of cordoned off here, is number 4, which I think is probably a little more difficult. So in this one, Mr. Bernard suggested that we strike and staff actuary from the final sentence, as well as actuary from the end of that sentence. It seems to me that this number 4, where preliminary findings are being provided, it's an open question as to whether this should go to the actuarial committee or to the full board. Mr. Bernard, can you speak to that as to what your feeling is?
Well, there are 2 elements here. One is the executive director and staff actuary. It seems needlessly duplicative, and it also sort of seems like we're telling the executive director how to run her shop. I would assume that she's the one who's going to inform us on the advice of the staff actuary. And with regard to the second part of this, I don't have strong feelings about it because if we follow 2 and 3, as I've suggested, board members would know that where there is a problem, and if that just wants to go to the I would suggest we strike actuary and replace that with the actuarial committee, and that would be fine with me.
I would agree with those changes. Any other discussion or comment of those changes to item number 4?
And I would like to add something here quickly to make the members aware. One of the comments we had received from a system was with regards to affording the system an opportunity once the staff makes a determination that a system is not meeting the guidelines, to add something in here to make that an informal process or something included in the policy to first reach out to the system and work with them to make sure we are on the same page.
I think that that is probably best handled through the public comment question to see, what we get back in from the systems along those lines. So on the changes here, I've got in item number 2, we are striking the word actuary at the very end so it will read the executive director and board now at the very end. And then the final sentence in item number 4, we are striking and staff actuary from that sentence, as well as actuary from the final word of that sentence, and we are adding in actuarial committee. So the sentence would then read, the executive director will report preliminary findings to the board actuarial committee.
I agree with that.
Any discussion? Further comments?
I'd make a motion to that effect.
All right. Do we need to do any more than read that?
We could go ahead and read this to make it clear what's happening.
Gotcha.
We're not adopting the policy, instead we're submitting it for public comment.
So the chair entertains a motion to direct staff to request public comment on the proposed updates with the changes that we discussed just a moment ago to the policy for determination of system actuarial review, and present the proposed updates with any comments received at the next meeting for the board's consideration.
As amended.
As amended. Can I get a motion?
We have a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All for the motion say aye.
Aye.
All against, nay. The motion is passed. All right, moving on to item number 7 on the agenda.
Thank you, members. Behind tab 5A, we have included in your packet the interim charges issued by the 84th legislature concerning pension topics for the House Committee on Pensions, House Appropriations, and Senate State Affairs. We wanted to make sure that we keep the board apprised of those interim charges or the topics that these committees would be looking into going forward, and I'll make sure to keep the board updated as well whenever the committees start holding those interim hearings.
Any discussion of the interim charges for the 84th legislature? Seeing none, let's move on to B.
Thank you, members. I would like to call on Ashley Rendon to give her report on Telfra annual pension report.
Good morning, members. I am Ashley Rendon, Policy Analyst at the Pension Review Board. And behind tab 6, you will find the draft of the Texas Local Firefighters Retirement Act Pension Report, or TELFRA report. This report provides general comparative pension-related data for paid and part-paid retirement plans organized under TELFRA, and was developed in response to requests made by to the PRB by several of the TELFRA systems. The TELFRA report uses data that the systems already submit to the PRB as required by the government code, and such as the annual financial reports, PRB 1000 forms, actuarial valuations, benefit summaries, and updated registration information. In producing the report, we've made sure to keep communication with the TELFRA representatives with the process and include input and suggestions from the TELFRA systems. An example of that is in the directory section. We've included a contractor's information table, which includes information that we received through a survey we sent out to the plans, as that information isn't something that's required to be sent to us. We sent a copy of the draft to each of the 42 systems on January 22nd so that they could view the report and let us know if they had any updates. For example, change in contact information or some of those annual financial reports that were a little later. We've incorporated those updates through February 4th, and we continue to update the report as systems submit the information to us. We want to finish our edits and have the finalized copy of the report this month, and for distribution to the Telfra systems and posting on the PRB website. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Board, are there any questions about this report? I will say that this is a great report, and we'll commend the staff on generally their great work on reports that are produced through the PRB.
I agree.
Thank you, members. And we would also like to thank our Telfra systems who have provided very helpful feedback on this report. And just to quickly reiterate, this is something that the Firefighters Pension Commissioner's Office used to put together, and we'd heard from a lot of our systems that they find this report very helpful. We have included general comparative information on our Telfra systems, and we have also tried to include some charts and pictographic representations in the report, so it's helpful for our constituents. And if members have any suggestions, we'd be happy to look into those as well. But our hope is to get the report published by the end of this month.
Will this report be produced on an annual, semi-annual basis?
On an annual basis. That's what our hope is, and we will of course touch base with our Telfra plans to see if they have any comments or any specific sense on how often they want to see these reports, but at least at a minimum we hope to publish those annually.
So we hope to have another report in 2017.
2017, that's correct.
I have a question. Got a
Sure.
question. In looking at Corsicana, their first year net is 0.11%. Is that correct, or is it?
Which page are you
I'm
on,
on page
Mr.
11
Richards?
on the investment return.
So that's one of the PRB 1000 is our investment returns and assumptions report, and they report these numbers: the 1-year net, 3-year net, 10-year and long term, and so that would be the number that they
That's the number they
produced for 2000 as of the end of 2014.
So in fiscal year 14, the Corsicana plan returned 0.11% on assets net of expenses.
Yes.
And
Okay.
yes, that's correct, and that's the trend we are seeing with a lot of our systems for 2014. That wasn't a good year for our plans. So.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this report? Like I said, it's a fantastic report. I really appreciate especially the graphics in here. It helps the reader really interpret the information that's provided in the table. So great work on this report. So you wanted to publish this by the end of the month, you said. So the chair entertains a motion to approve and distribute the TLFFRA pension report. Can I get a motion to distribute that report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion passes. All right, making some headway here. We're going to item number 8 on the agenda, Administrative Committee.
Thank you, members. The first item we have under agenda item 8 is a report on the Puerto Rico Assistance Act of 2015. In your packet, members, behind tab 7, we have included a report on the Puerto Rico Assistance Act of 2015, which was introduced to the 114th Congress in December of last year and has been referred to the Senate Committee on Finance. This particular report, members, includes certain provisions with regards to state and local pension plans across the country, and more specifically, it creates a federal reporting structure for state and local government pension plans, which is akin to the 2013 Public Employee Pension Transparency Act. And the only difference is, in this particular version, there is no mention or discussion on any compliance or penalty if the proposed reporting structure is not adhered to by the state and local pension plans. And the staff wanted to make sure that we keep the board as well as our constituents apprised of this bill.
It's my understanding that they have took out of this bill, they've taken out this issue associated with if you don't properly disclose to us, the federal government, what you're doing, then we have the right to impose a tax on the cities and that has been taken out, but there's always the risk that it would come back in. And
I'm sorry, Mr. May, what you're referring to is in PEPTA before there was a requirement.
Right.
So the federal government gives states and localities the ability to issue tax-exempt bonds, and then this would be a requirement to be able to issue those tax-exempt bonds. And so
Right.
if you didn't fulfill your obligation under the requirement, you could no longer issue tax-exempt
And that
bonds. But
language
that's out of
was
this.
in the so-called
Yep.
Puerto Rico bill that was, I think, but was taken out later in December, I think. Do any of you have agree or counter input? from
I think
what
that's
I've
correct.
said?
That's my understanding.
That it's not currently an issue. It's
that
gone
is not
away,
currently in
but it
there.
could come back during this session.
Excuse me, Bob.
Sure, you go ahead.
Even still, this proposal requires a substantial reporting workload on states and local governments.
Right.
And frankly is an unnecessary imposition by the feds on the states and
Now, are
cities.
you saying that's still in the bill?
Yes, sir. They are mandating a widespread substantial reporting requirement. And frankly, it's potentially the camel's nose under the tent. A federation of roughly 20 organizations represent states and local governments and retirement plans, and trustees and directors and so on, have sent a letter to members of Congress, including these bill sponsors, indicating their strong opposition to this proposal. And they're using Puerto Rico as an example, which is a terrible example of the condition of state and local government pension plans, and using that as a ruse or a pretense to require this reporting.
So for the purposes of this board, this is currently attached to legislation that was filed last year associated with Puerto Rico's their financial troubles and the potential move by Congress to have some sort of orderly workout for them, a bankruptcy type proceeding. And this extension of a reporting requirement to all state and local plans was put in there, and that language came from PEPTA, although from the PEPTA language, no longer is this requirement around tax-exempt bonds. In terms of timing, so this was filed last year. Puerto Rico is still trying to work through its difficulties. I've seen estimates where they're not going to be able to make good on bond payments that come due here in the very early summer. And so in terms of when this will move and for the board's monitoring, we should expect to see something move on this if it is going to move going into early summer.
Is there any role for the Pension Review Board here in terms of drawing attention to this at the federal level?
I don't know that there is. I think this is probably beyond our mandate, and I'm not sure that there would be kind of uniform agreement on this board as to the extent to which this is problematic or not. But happy to entertain other comments on that.
No, I agree with that. There is a TexPERS, an organization that represents public pension plans in the state, and if they've not already, perhaps they'll want to respond to this as well.
Yeah, I think.
Has the NCPERS also responded, or?
Yes, sir. They were one of those list of roughly 20.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate type of group that should respond to this. I don't believe that the Pension Review Board should respond.
Thank you, members. And what we always try to do is make sure we keep the board as well as our constituents apprised of any federal law-related changes.
Our next, for our next board meeting, can we be sure that we kind of get an update? If there is something, if there is a new development on the Puerto Rico bill, let's make sure that we include that as an update.
Keith, could you give us that update at our next
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
board meeting?
All right, moving on to agency website improvements.
Thank you, members. And we, behind tab 8 of your packet, members, excuse me, behind tab 6B of your packet, we have included the screenshots of our the version of our website that we are hoping to launch soon. And as I had mentioned at the last board meeting, based on the comments we've heard from our constituents, and given the fact that we would provide online training to our constituents using the website, our hope was to make it as user-friendly as possible, make it mobile-friendly as well, and to organize the website so it's easy for folks to access the different sections. A lot of the information that's available on our current version of the website will still be there, but what folks would experience is with the new search tool or the search box, the efficiency of the website will definitely improve and they'd be able to find information quickly. And certainly we encourage any comments that our constituents or the members have to ensure we put out the best work and a good version of our website. And I would also like to thank staff that work passionately on getting this done. And I think the constituents would appreciate the changes.
Fantastic. So can you tell me what the timeline is on this? So we've got screenshots here. Do we know when a live site will be ready?
And our thought is to first make sure we test it before making it public, but hopefully by the end of this month.
Okay. And in the meantime here, would it be okay if board members would like a walkthrough of the website for them to reach out to you independently and get that walkthrough and provide any comments on the website that they have?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a little bit tough from screenshots to provide comments, and I think that there may be a few members of the board that would find it useful to do a walkthrough.
Sure. And one thing that I would quickly like to mention on our website is we have added a section for the PRB news clips. So instead of in the past or up until now, we used to ask our constituents if they would like to be included in the mailing list or in the listserv to receive our news clips. And with the website, we have added a feature where they can go to our website and subscribe automatically instead of reaching out to us for those.
That's great. Do we have any comments or discussion about the website?
I would just echo your comments that it looks very good. Appreciate the work that's been done on it.
I think the correct term is snazzy. All right. Moving on to item C.
Thank you, members. This is just to remind members about filing their 2014 personal financial statements. They would be hearing from the Texas Ethics...
2014 or
2015, excuse me. They would be hearing from the Texas Ethics Commission, and what we have been informed is that they will allow folks to create an online account and file the statements for 2015 online instead of mailing them paper copy. So if members have any questions or if they don't hear from Texas Ethics Commission, and I believe the deadline is generally April 30th, let us know if you need help or if you have not heard from Texas Ethics Commission, and we'll make sure that you get the right information.
We should expect to hear from them
That's correct. You should expect to see a letter from them.
So, two things. The online process is really easy. The Ethics Commission has done a great job with that. In terms of process, will you be notified if we are slow in fulfilling our duty in filing that? Is that how that will come to us, or if somebody misses it?
Sure. What we try to do is reach out to the Ethics Commission and ask if they need anything from our board members that they are waiting on, and make the members aware if that's the
Great,
case.
thank you.
So we'll make sure we do that again.
Any other comments or questions? All right, moving on.
Thank you, members. Next, on your agenda, members, just wanted to make you aware of the upcoming Texas TechSpurs annual conference. It's going to be held in Dallas this year, and it's on April 3rd through 6th. So if members are interested to attend, please let us know, and we'll make the appropriate arrangements, and we do have a motion for that as well.
The chair entertains a motion to approve the attendance of interested board members at the 2016 TechSpurs Annual Conference. Is there any discussion of that motion?
Second.
All right, can somebody move to approve this motion?
Well, I think you just did.
I need somebody to move and then a second, so I'm just raising it.
Okay, I so move that the motion be approved as read by the chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
I would make a comment on that I think particularly for our new board members, I think it's helpful to all of us, but I think particularly our new board members to get a better idea of what our systems are doing through TechSpurs. They're doing quite a bit, and to be aware of that. It works better if you're there and part of it.
Fantastic.
Just hear about it.
For the record, the motion passed. All right, moving on to E.
Thank you, members. The last item on your agenda with regards to my update is the agency's 2016 operating budget. I just wanted to let the members know that nothing has changed on the budget since the October meeting, and we are on the right track. And a copy of our budget is also included in your packet.
And is there anything that you would like to highlight on the budget, or that you would like to draw our attention to?
For the most part, because of turnover, we still have some saving from that, but we are, and I do have a staff update to give, but we are on the right track. We are within the budget, so there's nothing for the members to be concerned of.
Great. Other comments or discussion about the budget? All right.
Thank you, members. And lastly, I am happy to report that come February 29th, we will be fully staffed. We will be at the 14 FTE level. We are authorized to have 15 employees, but our budget only permits to hire 14. We have quite a number of new staff members that I would like to introduce. We hired Samantha Buckley back in October of last year. Samantha has a JD, if you don't mind, Samantha, just to make sure that board members know who you are. She has a JD and has worked for the House Research Organization last session as a policy analyst. Samantha is going to assist us with the online course where we right now need the most help on, and she's already hit the ground running. Next, members, we hired Cheryl Perry as our new administrative assistant. She's previously worked for the Austin Police Department and for a number of years, and is a certified administrative professional, and she's already proving to be a great fit for the agency. We also hired Shelley Murphy, and I'm sure you all have already interacted with her, and she is going to serve in the role of executive assistant as well as board secretary, and feel free to flood her with emails if you have questions or need something. That's what she's here for. She's previously worked with the Texas Department of Transportation, and she's proving to be a good addition to the agency as well. And lastly, I would like to introduce our new staff actuary, most awaited, and also like to thank Keith and Bob. They were very gracious to help us in the interview process. Kenny brings a number of years of experience. He's an enrolled actuary, and he's worked at Rudd & Wisdom, and he is going to start on February 29th, and we are very excited to have him come on board. So that concludes my staff update.
Fantastic. Welcome to the new staff, and we look forward to working with you. All right, we're moving on to agenda item number 9, election of the vice chair. The chair recognizes Vice Chair Massengale for his dedication to the PRB and for serving as the vice chair to the PRB in 2015. The chair calls for nominations for the position of vice chair for this year, 2016, and I would like to start by nominating Keith Brainard for vice chair.
I second.
I second the motion.
Are there any other nominations or discussion?
None.
Seeing none, all approved say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion passes. All right, moving on to item number 10, committee assignments. So on committee assignments, we've got a number of openings caused by turnover on the board. What I'd like to do is kind of list those openings and propose some board members to fill those openings, and then have kind of a blanket motion to approve those committee assignments. We can have discussion after I read through these proposed committee assignments. So we've got an opening on the actuarial committee, an opening on the administrative committee, 2 openings on the legislative committee, and an opening in the education and research committee. So on the actuarial committee, I would like to nominate myself to fill that vacant position. On the administrative committee, the 2 positions would be filled by Keith Brainard and Judge Cable. On the legislative committee, Robert Massengale would be chair, and Ernest Richards would be the other committee assignment. And then on the education and research committee, Judge Cable would be chair, and Stephanie Libey would be a committee member. Is there any discussion from the board on those proposed committee assignments?
No.
Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept those proposed committee assignments?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is passed. All right, moving on to item number 11, call for future agenda items and future meeting dates. So we need to set a date for us to get together again, and we need to figure out if there's anything in particular that board members right now would like to add to that agenda.
Well, I have sensed that we would move, that we would have an actuarial committee meeting before the next board meeting. And have you thought of that, Anu, in terms of time or suggested time frame to lay out to us?
For the actuarial committee meeting, of course, it's for the board to decide if they would like to charge the committee to meet before the next board meeting, and we are hoping to have our next board meeting in early May. So the board has the option either to have a committee meeting before our May meeting or have a committee meeting after our May board meeting, once we have some substantive items on the agenda for the May meeting for the board to discuss and charge the committee moving forward. So it's up to the board as to how they want to proceed.
Mr. May, I think it would be a good idea for the actuarial committee to get together if there are things that that would be valuable for us to discuss. Do you think we would have valuable discussions before the May meeting?
I'm on the fence on that, on how valuable it'd be, whether it'd be better to have the next board meeting and then.
I anticipate at the next board meeting, and Anu kind of alluded to this, at the next board meeting, we would discuss tasking the actuarial committee with reviewing the guidelines and also have a discussion about having a multi-tiered rating system. So those two things would be considered in that May meeting, tasking the actuarial committee with those.
To task the actuarial committee,
Correct.
which would meet after the May meeting.
Correct.
I think that's a good approach.
Mr. Bernard, do you have any?
No, I agree.
Okay. Any other discussion of future agenda items, things that board members would like to see in that May meeting? I believe we will have 2 more PRB meetings between now and the end of the year.
That's correct.
May and one other?
Excuse me, 3 more. This meeting is a catch-up from last
right.
year, so
3 more.
yeah, we'll have 3 more board
We will have
meetings
3
this
more
year.
board meetings in this calendar year.
At least, if not, if the board wants to have more, we can.
Correct. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is related, the date and location of the next PRB meeting. So the next meeting of the PRB will be held in May, as we've already discussed. Is there anything else that we need to discuss related to that? Anybody have any concerns around a meeting date in May, given that we have 3 additional meetings to get in? Hearing none, I think that we can move on, and the executive director will work on a date in May that works.
Do we know what the status is of interim studies at the legislature and our need to be aware of that, know when it's happening and so forth? Or is it still unknown when they will do that?
Sure. We do know that Senate State Affairs is holding some hearings, and they're probably going to have one next week. But as far as House Pensions Committee goes, and as far as discussing specific pension-related topics, we haven't heard from the committees yet, but we'll make sure if we do to make the members aware.
Well, they're asking for some input from us, and so we need to know when they're going to meet. I mean, or
Sure.
so we've done our job to get them input.
Sure. And generally, they start holding the interim hearings in summer or fall. So I'll make sure that I stay on top of that and make the members aware.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great if we could get an update on that going into or at that May board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, Bob, when you say they're asking for information from us, are you referring to the PRB staff?
They're asking for, they've sent us some.
Oh, as articulated in their charge.
You're right.
That's
Okay.
Yes.
correct.
Thank you.
That we've
He's
got
trying to
a charge
anticipate
and
what
we
they
need to
want.
respond to the charge.
Thank you.
Yeah, since they have legislative oversight over some of the state agencies, they will probably request us to provide an update both on agency activities as well as implementation of certain bills.
Just before we go any further, being a new member, I was just curious on how the committee meetings, how the members decide when they're going to meet, and who is the executive director is going to be responsible for it, setting it up, or the committee members do that themselves, and is it going to be here in Austin, or can we do it over the phone? So just give me a little bit of the mechanics and how.
Sure. Thank you for that question. With regards to the board's committee meetings, of course, the board can charge any of its standing committees to look into a particular item, so the board can ask the committee to meet, as well as the chair of each. It's my understanding in our bylaws, it's also allowed for the chair of a committee meeting to call for a meeting. And traditionally, Traditionally, we have always had our committee and board meetings in Austin. The important thing to keep in mind is wherever we have our committee or board meetings is to make sure there is a quorum present of all our of the board or the committee, whatever may be the case. Does that?
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. So it would be helpful to have the committee meeting before the board meeting, so that whatever we do would then be passed on to the board, so that the board will discuss. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sure, yes. That's the idea, to have these standing committees, is to make the process easier for the board and for the committees to provide recommendations to the board. And with the actuarial committee, that's what, I guess, at the next board meeting, the board would look at doing. So.
Well, isn't it true that in past years, the committees of the legislature have had their meeting pretty late in this year, getting closer to when the legislature comes into session in January of next year? And if that's true again, we have things we'll be moving ahead on, starting with our May meeting, things out of that are not directly on point to what they do. So we may not be able to. We can try to coordinate, but it seems like historically it would have been pretty hard to correlate what we're doing with what they're doing time-wise, because they're hard to predict when what their schedule is going to be.
I think that's right. I think that getting an update in May of what we anticipate and trying to be prepared is the best course of action. I would also say that for these standing committees, they meet whenever there's action that they need to take between board meetings to update the board. And so I anticipate that not every committee will meet every time between every board meeting.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that agenda item? All right, at this point, we're going to invite public comment. I'll remind that the audience that we've got, and board members, since we've got some new board members, and remind myself, that we've got to stick to the agenda items here. And so to the extent that comments are off agenda, we can't have any back and forth, and even having a discussion on agenda requires opening up those agenda items again. So I would ask the board to kind of refrain from making comments unless we decide to open up a specific agenda item again. So are there those in the audience that would like to make public comments? Teresa Perez-Wisely?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I got a quick question on the public comments. Is there a time limit, or do people just get up and speak as they want?
I am fine moving on without a time limit.
Oh.
Don't worry, I'll be through very quick. I don't know if it's good morning or good afternoon anymore, but ladies and gentlemen, my name is Teresa Perez-Wisely, and I'm representing the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans Educational Fund. We are based in Dallas, but we're all over the country, and I'm from the Austin chapter. The Texas Alliance for Retired Americans Educational Fund, a part of the 4 million member National Alliance for Retired Americans, or TARA, is concerned about the fact that Chairman McGee is associated with an organization which has worked to undermine public pension systems like ours in Texas. Many of our members are part of the current Texas Retirement System of Texas or the Employee Retirement System of Texas. They have worked and contributed to their defined benefit system, which allows them to have a safe plan to provide a secure, affordable, and defined retirement. TARA's educational fund is firmly committed to fighting to keep this defined benefit system. Any effort to restructure or weaken it will be met by stiff opposition from our seniors. We will work in coalition with a number of other groups to fight any potential negative change. We hope that this board will work to continue to preserve and to strengthen it, and will avoid any measures which could undermine these systems. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comments? Seeing no one coming forward at the moment, if there's no further business and no objection, the chair moves to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.